On Mother's Day 2002, Jennifer Harris moved through Fannin County, Texas, the way she always had. Bonham was the kind of small town where people recognized your Jeep before they recognized your face, where gossip traveled faster than weather, and where a young woman with bright red hair could still feel like she was meant for a bigger world. Jennifer was 28 years old. In high school, she had been popular and athletic, a tennis player and cheerleader with bright brown eyes, and a personality that pulled people in. To the people closest to her, she was a lovable goofball, the red-haired girl who could be sweet one moment and hilarious the next. She had friends everywhere. She had a way of making people feel like they belonged. But by the spring of 2002, Jennifer's life had become complicated and heavy. Years earlier, she had left Bonham to go to college, about 3 hours away. Her longtime boyfriend Rob Holman followed her. They married in 1996 in a wedding that was carefully planned and remembered as beautiful. A year later, Jennifer's mother died of cancer, and the loss changed the family's center of gravity. Jennifer became more open-minded, more adult, more hungry to shape her own life. In 1999, Jennifer and Rob bought a house in suburban Dallas. On the surface, it looked like the next step, but the marriage strained under the weight of two people growing in different directions. Rob preferred the slower pace of rural Bonham. Jennifer wanted city life and new possibilities. She embraced a holistic lifestyle and enrolled in massage therapy school, searching for a career that fit who she was becoming. That was where she met James Hamilton. James was different from the people Jennifer had known back home. He had a new age style and a touchy-feely way of talking. Jennifer and James formed a business partnership around a massage and wellness center. At the same time, her marriage to Rob was failing. Jennifer and Rob divorced, and Rob moved back to Bonham. James moved in with Jennifer in Dallas, but James's life was complicated too. He was living with the mother of his child, and another baby was on the way. Jennifer's connection to him was tangled, and the more time passed, the more unstable the relationship became. There were fights, there was tension. And as the business struggled, Jennifer found herself carrying the financial weight. By the spring of 2002, the massage business had failed. Jennifer filed for bankruptcy. She was exhausted and unhappy, drained by money problems and emotional stress that never fully healed. And then Jennifer's past pulled at her again. She confided to someone close that she had been back in touch with Rob Holman. Rob had a new girlfriend, but Jennifer still loved him. She wanted him back even though the marriage had ended. Their relationship had not truly closed. Rob later admitted that he and Jennifer were still having sex, even while he was seeing someone else. Jennifer was living a split life, and not everyone around her knew it. Not long before she disappeared, Jennifer was seen outside her apartment with a moving truck. She was leaving Dallas and moving back to Bonham. The move surprised people who thought she would never return for good. But the reasons were clear to those who understood her heart. Bonham meant Rob. Bonham meant unfinished business. Bonham meant the old life she could not fully let go of. About 6 weeks after the move, Mother's Day arrived. On the evening of Mother's Day, May 2002, Jennifer visited a friend named Christy Farr. The visit seemed normal. It was early evening. As it got close to 8:00 p.m., Jennifer stood up and said she had to go. She did not say where she was going. She simply left. She never came home that night. The next day, Jennifer's Jeep was discovered parked down the road from a local music spot. It was the kind of sight that made people pause, a vehicle left behind in a place where it didn't belong. A Jeep that sat long enough for someone to notice it the first day, then notice again the second day and start asking the question that wouldn't stop echoing. Why is that Jeep still here? As Jennifer remained missing, the two men most connected to her were pulled into the center of the story. James Hamilton, her former boyfriend and business partner, spoke and denied seeing her that night. He claimed he was more than an hour away from Bonham at a McDonald's with a friend around the time Jennifer disappeared. He took a lie detector test and passed. His alibi was accepted as checked out. Rob Holman also spoke and denied seeing Jennifer that night. But Rob's version of events sounded uncertain, even to him. He said he went out to buy beer and visit friends. When they weren't home, he claimed he drove around alone for 5 hours on rural roads. He said he didn't have anyone who could confirm where he was. He sounded worried about that fact, worried it would make him look guilty. Then his story shifted again. Under pressure, Rob described seeing a Jeep that night. He placed it at a stop sign by a blinking light on a road he identified. At one point, he described the Jeep as being in front of him, coming from town. Jennifer had been missing for 72 hours by then. The search went on day after day. Jennifer's father, Jerry Harris, barely slept. He drove country roads looking for signs, scanning for buzzards, following the grim instincts that sometimes guide a parent when hope starts to rot into dread. 6 days after Jennifer disappeared, a fisherman on the Red River made a discovery that ended the search and began a different kind of nightmare. A body was seen in the water. Jennifer Harris was found in the Red River. When her family reached the bridge, the scene was chaos and disbelief. They stared at the water, at the people gathered, at the slow movement of recovery. The moment stretched into something unreal. Jennifer's father was there, desperate for certainty, desperate to see, desperate to understand. The body was completely naked, not a sock, not a stitch of clothing. Jennifer had been disposed of in the river like trash, and the humiliation of that fact became part of the family's pain. Her body was badly decomposed. The condition was so severe that a specific cause of death could not be determined. The death was classified as homicidal violence, a phrase that felt cold and incomplete. It meant Jennifer had been killed. It did not explain how, and the missing details became a vacuum that swallowed the next 15 years. The case file that should have grown thick with evidence and answers stayed thin. Some evidence was mishandled. Some was stored improperly. Water leaked onto important documents. Some items were contaminated, some were destroyed. Jennifer's laptop and clothing that might have been hers, a shirt, a bra, and jeans, were booked into evidence and then disappeared. The case became known across Fannin County not only as a murder, but as an open wound. People talked, people argued, people chose sides. And in a small town, public opinion can become its own kind of courtroom. Jennifer's murder left her family trapped between memory and anger. Her younger sister Alyssa woke up every day with Jennifer on her mind. Her father Jerry carried the weight like a lifelong sentence. And as years passed with no arrest, frustration hardened into a need that could not be negotiated. Someone had to be held accountable. By the time more than 15 years had passed, the search for justice took on new forms. A group called Riding for Justice began reaching out to people who had known Jennifer Harris. Riders saddled up once a month, drawing crowds, keeping the case alive in a county where nearly everyone wanted an answer. In Bonham and across Fannin County, Jennifer was still remembered as a real person, not just a headline. A red-haired girl, a dreamer, an idealist, someone who believed there was a bigger world outside that small town, even if her life had pulled her back. Alyssa married a filmmaker named Barry Wernernick 8 years after Jennifer's murder. When Barry first learned about the case, his mind snapped to the same questions everyone asked in private. Who did it? Over time, Barry and Alyssa decided to do more than wonder. They began working with Daryl Parker, a former lieutenant in the Fannin County Sheriff's Office who later became a private investigator. Parker had been working with Jerry Harris for years and never charged him a dime. Jerry was a Marine and Vietnam veteran. Parker was also a Marine. Their bond was built on loyalty and a shared belief in justice. When Mark Johnson, a longtime law enforcement officer, ran for sheriff in 2016, he met Jerry Harris on the campaign trail. Johnson made a promise to continue the investigation. When he took office on January 1, he demanded the Jennifer Harris case be brought to him immediately. When the boxes arrived, the reality was crushing. The file was light. Duplicates of paperwork sat stacked without progress. Wet documents showed where evidence storage had failed. The case looked like something that had been dragged through years of confusion and poor handling, and still, the community wanted it solved. But one problem remained unchanged. There was no physical evidence tying a specific person to the murder. Even as suspicion swirled around familiar names, the case stayed locked in place. From the beginning, two men had stood out in Jennifer's story. Rob Holman, the ex-husband, the childhood boyfriend, the man Jennifer still wanted back. James Hamilton, the business partner who wanted to marry her, the man whose relationship with her had turned fiery and unstable. For years, Parker believed the answer pointed directly at Rob Holman. Barry and Alyssa came to share that conviction. In their minds, Jennifer's return to Bonham and her continuing involvement with Rob created the most dangerous pressure point of all. There was another detail that fed the rumors and the fear. Not long after Jennifer's body was examined, a stunning discovery was recorded. Her uterus was missing. The fact alone was enough to ignite a wildfire of theories in a place where gossip could become gospel. People began to say Jennifer had been pregnant. People began to say the killer removed her uterus to destroy proof of pregnancy and paternity. But there was no scientific evidence that Jennifer was pregnant at the time of her death. And later forensic analysis concluded the missing uterus was not removed by a killer. It was destroyed by turtles and fish in the river. Even so, the rumor did not die. Jennifer had spoken to her best friend Jill Wagner weeks before she died about a mess she was in. Jill guessed it before Jennifer said it, and Jennifer confirmed it. Jennifer had told her she was pregnant. Jennifer also identified the father as Rob Holman. Rob had his own version. He admitted meeting Jennifer a month before her disappearance near a drive-in movie theater. He described Jennifer telling him she was pregnant and that it was his. Whatever the biological truth was, the belief that Jennifer was pregnant became part of the case's shadow. It shaped suspicion, it shaped motive, and it shaped the way people looked at Rob. Daryl Parker tried to pressure Rob years after the murder. On a Mother's Day anniversary of the crime, Parker visited Rob's house with a stack of photographs of Jennifer and Rob. One photo showed Jennifer swimming in muddy water. Rob picked that photo first and stared at it for several seconds, locked on it in a way that struck Parker as meaningful. Parker told Rob to call if he wanted to talk, and then he left. A few hours later, Rob called. Parker wanted to record the interview properly, so he suggested meeting at the sheriff's office the next day. In hindsight, Parker believed that decision cost him a chance. When Rob arrived, he had a lawyer. The moment shifted from open tension to guarded denial. Rob maintained he had nothing to do with Jennifer's death. As the years passed, suspicion spread beyond Rob and James. In Bonham, even a district attorney, Miles Porter, became a target of rumor. People claimed he had been arrested for the murder. The claim was false, but the damage lasted. It followed him through the court of public opinion long after any official suspicion faded. The case became a storm where truth and fiction mixed until the air itself felt dirty. After 15 years of frustration, a fresh set of eyes was brought in. A private investigator named Joe Mora traveled from Boston to Texas to examine the Jennifer Harris file. He looked at the thin collection of documents and saw a case that had been weak from the start. He questioned how early interviews had been handled, how Miranda warnings were used in a missing person phase, and how fear and confusion could have shaped what people said. He also questioned how thoroughly alibis were verified, especially James Hamilton's claim that he was at a McDonald's more than 50 miles away. Mora saw money as a possible motive that had not been fully developed. Notes existed that James Hamilton had contacted Jerry Harris about Jennifer's life insurance policy 2 months after her death. To Mora, that kind of question mattered. But Mora also pushed back on theories that had hardened into certainty without proof. One example was a burned caretaker cottage near the Red River. The cottage burned the same night Jennifer disappeared. Some believed it was set on fire to destroy evidence. Pieces of melted glass remained. Some believed Jennifer died near that spot because blue marl mud was found on the front of her body. And fishermen claimed that kind of mud existed only in a couple of locations along that stretch of river. Crews had excavated the area around the foundation. A well was drained and dug through. Nothing was recovered. Years of searching produced no physical link between the cottage, the riverbank, and the crime. To Mora, the case needed facts, not theories. But one lead in the file caught his attention more than the rest. A year after Jennifer's murder, a woman named Deborah Lambert saw a news report about the unsolved case and came forward. She described driving across the Red River Bridge on Mother's Day and seeing something that stayed with her. She saw 3 men and a girl. 2 men had the girl by her elbows. The girl appeared to be trying to get away. The men appeared to be restraining her. The girl had reddish-brown hair. Deborah made eye contact with her, and the look on the girl's face was terrified. Deborah did not call back immediately after that day. She later said she had been too afraid to get involved, and the timeline she gave did not match the timeline detectives believed. Deborah placed the sighting around 5:00 p.m., but Jennifer had been with Christy Farr until close to 8:00 p.m. Even so, the gap did not erase the possibility. People do not always remember exact times with precision. Deborah could have been wrong about the hour and right about what she saw. Deborah Lambert was later re-interviewed when a separate investigation was launched by the Texas Rangers about a year and a half after Jennifer's murder. Her story remained detailed. 3 men, a redhead, 2 in jeans, 1 in shorts. She was shown a photo lineup. Deborah Lambert identified Rob Holman as one of the men she saw near the bridge. How the lineup was conducted became a question without answers. Details were not recorded clearly in the file. Without those details, the identification could not be measured properly. But the fact remained, Deborah's statement and her identification were an open door that had never been fully walked through. Eventually, the Texas Rangers suspended their investigation. The final assessment was grim. No physical evidence, no specific cause of death, and no credible witnesses linked any particular person as a suspect. Deborah Lambert later died. Her mother died too. The chance to ask follow-up questions vanished with them, leaving only recorded interviews behind. By the time the case reached its second decade, the people closest to Jennifer were still chasing an ending that would not arrive. Jerry Harris was older but still waiting. Alyssa carried the loss like a daily ache. Barry, driven by family loyalty, leaned into the work like it was the only way to honor Jennifer's memory. They tried contacting James Hamilton. No response came back. They tried contacting Rob Holman. When approached at his home, Rob refused to talk on camera. Off camera, he maintained he never saw Jennifer that night and said he had been advised by his attorney not to speak. A statement from his attorney repeated the same position. Rob had never been arrested or charged, had been treated like a suspect, and had maintained his innocence from the beginning. With no resolution and no charges, Barry floated the idea of raising reward money, believing it might shake loose a confession or a witness. Others believed money could not create evidence where none existed. Some called the Jennifer Harris case a cold case, others called it worse, a frozen case. Still, Sheriff Mark Johnson refused to let it go. Darrell Parker refused to let it go. Jerry Harris refused to let it go. They carried the story across years that did not make room for closure. They carried it through damaged files, missing evidence, dead ends, and the slow erosion of time. And Jennifer Harris remained at the center of it all, a young woman found in the Red River, naked and decomposed, her life erased in a way that left only questions behind. A daughter whose father spent nights driving dirt roads, scanning the sky for signs of death. A sister whose mornings began with the same thought 15 years later and then more. The case stayed unsolved, but the need did not fade. Justice for Jennifer Harris became more than a slogan. It became a promise passed from one person to the next. A promise that even without answers, even without evidence strong enough to end it, Jennifer's name would not disappear. Her family would keep writing, keep pushing, keep demanding the truth that still waited somewhere beyond the riverbanks of North Texas.